The word tabernacle means a protective covering, natural or spiritual. It also has the meaning of a temporary dwelling place, a hut or pavilion. Israel was to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days. The Feast of Weeks, which is Pentecost, was the beginning of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Tabernacles was the time of the gathering of the full ripe grape harvest. The Feast of Tabernacles marked the end of the harvest season, the gathering of all the harvest into the granaries. In Jesus' words, the harvest is the end of the world age. It was a time of great rejoicing and praising, not only for the Israelites, but for the servants, strangers, fatherless, widows, and all that were in the gates. The Feast of Tabernacles is a type and shadow to us of what God's people will do in the end of the age. God speaks throughout His Word about the deliverance of His people from the land of Egypt. He also speaks of another deliverance in the end of this age. In Revelation 12, we are shown a woman clothed with the sun. The sun is the glory of God, and the moon is judgment under her feet. Upon her head is a crown, which represents authority, of 12 stars, which is the government. This woman represents the true church God is bringing forth in the earth. He clothed this woman with His righteousness. He has given her authority to set up His government upon the earth. These are those who have been judged and found righteous. The woman fled into the desert to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1260 days. This 1260-day period has been shortened, as Jesus told us it would, so that some flesh might survive what is coming. Watch ye therefore and pray always, that you will be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Luke 21:36. God is going to have a people. Those who are becoming the new creation in Him will be protected in His special place during the days of wrath He will pour out upon the whole earth. This is the beginning of the new day for God's people. The Feast of Trumpets announces the end of the old religious year. The old was ending, and the new era was beginning. As the trumpets blow to announce the wrath, it is our signal to flee unto the Father, to the place of protection that God has provided for us. As the revelation hidden in the feast becomes manifested, it is plain why the Feast of Tabernacles is to be a time of rejoicing and praise unto our God. The ancient prophets prophesied what would come upon the whole earth. Isaiah spoke, "Come, my people, enter you into your chambers, and shut your doors about you. Hide yourself, as it were, for a little moment, until the indignation is past. See, the Lord is coming out of His dwelling to punish the peoples of the earth for their sins." Isaiah 26:20 and 21. The day will be a day of wrath, a day of distress and anguish, a day of trouble and ruin, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness. Zephaniah 1:15. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them on the day of the wrath of the Lord. In the fire of His jealousy all the earth shall be consumed. For a full and sudden end He will make of all the inhabitants of the earth. Zephaniah 1:18. The whole land will be devoured by the fire of His jealousy. He will make a speedy riddance of those whom He has not called unto Himself. After this warning, Zephaniah gives a word of encouragement. "Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the land, which have wrought His judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be that ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger." Zephaniah 2:3. God has a plan of protection for His people, and there is a place of protection for His elect. God will deliver His people, just as He delivered Israel from the land of Egypt. This will be the time of the ingathering. Ingathering is another name for the Feast of Tabernacles. And the Feast of Harvest, the feast of thy labors, the first fruits of thy labors which thou hast sown in the fields, and the Feast of Ingathering, which is the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in the labors out of the field. Exodus 23:16. The 7th month was the grape harvest. It also ended the wheat harvest. The farmers in ancient Israel had 2 main instruments of harvest, the threshing floor and the winepress. The Feast of Ingathering typifies both of these harvest tools. John the Baptist revealed the work God would do in the lives of His people through the Holy Spirit. John answered them all, "I baptize you with water, but one who is more powerful than I will come, the straps of whose sandals I am not worthy to untie. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire. His winnowing fork is in his hand to clear his threshing floor and to gather the wheat into his barn, but he will burn up the chaff with unquenchable fire." Luke 3:16-17. Chaff represents the worthless things in our lives that do not profit God. These things must be removed if He is to take us into His granary. The granary is a place where the grain is protected from all outside influences. Nothing but the pure, clean, ripe grain is taken into the granary. All the green heads are removed on the threshing floor. Green heads will mold and rot and spoil the other grain close to them. There will be no green heads in God's granary, only those who have come into complete maturity. Jesus gave the example of those who would not enter in. The tares were planted by the enemy and are children of the wicked one. The tares look like the wheat, but there is nothing in the head. The tares are those who call themselves by his name, but have given place to the enemy. The tares and the wheat were allowed to grow together until the harvest. The tares were bundled and burned, and the wheat was taken into his granary. Jesus uses another example of this great harvest when he referred to the grape harvest. In the book of Revelation, John recorded a vision. He was shown one like the Son of Man, with a golden crown upon his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. See Revelation 14:14. The sickle is an instrument of harvest. An angel came out of the temple and cried to the one like the Son of Man, "Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe." Revelation 14:15. The one who sat on the cloud, who had a golden crown and had the sickle in his hand, was Jesus. Gold is the symbol of God. The crown is the symbol of authority. Matthew records Jesus' words, "All power is given unto me in heaven and in earth." Matthew 28:18. The cloud symbolizes God's glory. Jesus is coming again in all his power, authority, righteousness, and glory to bring forth judgment in the earth. "Thrust in thy sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe." Revelation 14:18. These were fruit fit for the master's table. They were the choice, select, plumpest, ripest, and the best of the harvest. Only the best is good enough for the master. These were taken into his house or granary. John was shown another sickle, and the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. Revelation 14:19. After the full ripe grapes were taken for the master's use, in the first fruits rapture, the vine was gathered and cast into the great winepress of the wrath of God. The vine God cast into the great winepress of the wrath of God are those who have brought forth no fruit for the master's use. "I am the vine, ye are the branches." John 15:5. Jesus is our vine, our source of strength. We are the branches that produce the fruit. When Jesus revealed the two sickles to John, those who did not produce fruit were cut away and cast into the great winepress of the wrath of God. The winepress was trampled outside the city, and blood flowed from the winepress as high as a horse's bridle for about 183 miles. Revelation 14:20. This blood belongs to those who have not come to maturity and are not fit for the master's use. God has his people on the threshing floor to separate them from all things offensive to his kingdom. The harvest time is near. We need to be separated from all things that bring no profit to God. The winnowing fork needs to complete its cleansing work which began on the threshing floor. The Feast of Ingathering reveals the great ingathering of God's people at the end of the age. Those who enter into his kingdom will have separated all things that offend. These will shine forth as the noonday sun. Jesus spoke much of this new day. He also spoke of a great festival he called the marriage supper of the Lamb. Jesus spoke to John, "Write, Blessed are they which are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said unto me, These are the true sayings of God." Revelation 19:9. The marriage supper is after the wedding. Jesus spoke of this to the multitude. "Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning, like servants waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. Truly I tell you, he will dress himself to serve, will have them recline at the table, and will come and wait on them." Luke 12:35-37. Those who are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb are those who are waiting upon their Lord. When he comes to the marriage supper, he will gird himself and serve his people. The marriage supper is for those who are called and chosen of the Father. Jesus stated, "Many are called, but few are chosen." Matthew 22:14. Jesus proclaimed to those who are called and will not come, "For I tell you, none of those men who were invited shall taste my banquet." Luke 14:24. "And I say unto you that many shall come from the east and west, and shall sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Matthew 8:11-12. Jesus was not talking about the world being cast into outer darkness, where there is weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. He was talking about the children of the kingdom, those who are called but not chosen, those who were bidden to the marriage but made excuses. These were unwilling to separate themselves from worldly things to become what God had called them to be. They cried, "Lord, Lord, open to us." And he answered and said, "Truly I say to you, I do not know you." Matthew 25:11 and 12. While they were trying to get prepared, the bridegroom came, and the door was shut. Only the full ripe clusters went in. Jesus tried to warn his people. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. See Matthew 25:5. The day of harvest is at hand. The fields are truly white to harvest. See John 4:35. God is about to thrust in his sickle and take those who have been matured in the summer heat unto himself. The marriage supper is prepared, and the great last day of the feast is ready. There is a time of great joy, dancing, and feasting, awaiting those who are taken by the first sickle.